One of the questions that I get asked a lot about is about the brushes I use on Procreate. What are my favorite brushes and how do I use them? So in today's video, I thought I could talk about it and show you how I use those brushes for my illustrations. So in the brush library, I have created a favorite brush tab where I put all the brushes that I usually use most of the times, and here they're all brushes that are free, that come with Procreate app. So I'll go through them and talk about a few that I use the most. The first one is a dry ink brush. I use this the most for most of my illustrations. I'll say that my illustration style is quite simple. I like spending not too long time on my illustrations, and I like the look of a little bit carefree and naive look to them. So I think for the style that I like for illustrations, this brush really goes well. What I really like about it is that there are some parts when you draw which are not filled in completely, which gives a little bit of rough texture, but still it's not so messy around the strokes around, so it still creates a pretty clean look. Depending on how you use it, it sometimes can look like a pencil stroke or pencil texture. One way that I use this brush is for coloring any surfaces. So for example, I will just color in like so. And then I'll add another layer at the back. Then I'll just use another brush that fills in the whole surface, like so. And add a different brightness. So you see, when you look at it, then it creates a bit of contrast and the texture from afar. Another brush that I really like using is the ink bleed brush. I'll say that it's a little bit similar to the dry ink brush, but it has a bit of a fuzzy outline, which can create a nice effect as well. So I often like using this brush for making letterings or the title for my YouTube thumbnails. I would briefly talk about the 6B pencil. I think most of the people like this pencil brush. It's an amazing pencil for sketching, I would say, but I find myself not reaching out to it so much. I could use this brush for making sketches before I go on to drawing the actual drawing, but usually I reach out to the dry ink brush. Then I have another pencil brush which became my favorite nowadays. It's a brush from the brush pack from my friend Tin. She created this brush pack and she sells it on Etsy, and it's this sketch paper pencil, and I think it's beautiful. It's very smooth to the touch. It just follows the Apple Pencil really nicely, and it has this chalkboard, the chalk texture. I like that it has a consistent size no matter the pressure you have. And you can create some other textures like so when you tilt the pencil a little bit. Another pencil from this pack I like is the crispy pencil brush. Also kind of similar to the dry ink brush, but more compact. And I think it's amazing for making calligraphy also. And then there is a gouache brush, which is really great for making textures, and I often use it for making the textures and the background, for example. So I would just tap a little bit, ever so slightly, to create the tiny bit of the background texture, just to add a little bit of depth. Then there's also the Eagle Hawk brush, which I also like. And I use it quite similarly to the Gouache brush for the background textures. So I would make it big and lower the opacity and just go a little bit slightly to use to add a little bit of this kind of like a chalk texture. Then there's the Operon brush. I like using this brush in a big size and go in a little bit, very slightly, to create this this rough texture. And I think it can look very nice in the background to just add the depth and the texture to the drawing. And then I have two more brushes that I use a lot. So there's a soft brush, which is very basic. I don't use it for outlining or doing the main part of the work. I use it mainly for the background of the coloring. And then there's the Monoline brush that I often reach out to. I usually use this brush for making my patterns, and this is a perfect brush for that because often I make different shapes, for example a star, and I would need to fill in quickly like so. And I think it creates a very nice clean line, and it's very easy to work with. So 90% of the times I find myself reaching out to dry ink brush, so you can think that most of my drawings I've used this brush. I think I should try out some other brushes and explore different brushes to try out some different styles as well, but for now I feel very comfortable with this brush. And when I reach out to brushes, it's always, you know, brushes that kind of imitates the look of colored pencils, something that's a little bit rustic but easy to handle. So yeah, I think that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Then I'll see you in the next video. Bye!